Hello everyone and welcome to the Quilt Show. Today we're going to be creating a story in fabric using collage and mixed media techniques. It's going to be clear, it's going to be organized, and it's going to be inspirational. Stick around, you don't want to miss today. And now, your hosts for the Quilt Show, Alex Anderson and Ricky Timms.
Hey everybody, we're so glad that you're joining us today and that your journey led to right here. I think about journeys, Alex. I go down, I see something in the news or I see a piece of historic information and I start wanting to dig deeper and dig deeper and dig deeper and so forth. And I think that's what's happening with you today, right?
Oh my gosh. I have given myself a year to try other things and it has been so liberating and so exciting. I woke up this morning and I go, I get to teach what I learned from Sue Spargo's class, or just a little bit of it, okay?
Now, who's Sue Spargo?
Sue Spargo is an amazing wool artist, and she's been on the show a couple times, so you can Google her and watch. But she was teaching virtually from the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show, so I got to take it. I loved it. It was a 3-day class. Okay, and it was called Folk Tales. And we were going to make a little miniature thing about Africa. And I thought, no, I want to do it about my backyard. So let me show you what I started in her class. Well, no.
And everybody, this is wool. We're dealing with wool today, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm just getting all excited, okay? And so it's so funny, when it was over, I said to Wendy Grand, who's been on the show, she goes, well, I've just come to realize this is a lifetime project, you know, and it's so much fun. This is my cat Sparrow. Here is my fountain with the birds and my little frog. And the idea with Sue's class is that you create a background. We'll talk about that. Then you create the imagery. We'll talk about that. Then we stitch it down, then you just embellish till forever.
Well, okay, I'm coming at this totally from the dark because I didn't take the class and I don't know, but this looks like it's actually telling a story, and there's something about what you described in Sue's project that would make me think maybe that was a story as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Are you talking about Sue's?
Yeah, but this story, what is that story?
Well, do you really want to know?
Yes, of course.
So we
everybody does now because we've mentioned it already.
We have a fountain in our backyard, and in Sparrow's heyday, it was the cat feeder.
Oh, so Sparrow was watching and waiting, all right? Mm-hmm. Well, is that story being told here, or is it just kind of in your memory? Oh, there's the birds.
There's the birds,
I see
Ricky.
the birds now. Took me a moment to see the birds.
It's
Sorry,
a cat
I was looking
feeder.
at the frog because I like the frog.
Yeah. So, anyways, okay, moving on.
All right.
Okay. Sue has beautiful books, and this is her latest one on stitching. And one of the things I love about this book is that she's got imagery in here that just like, okay, I could do this, I could do that, etc. I had a problem with it though. I'm a left-hander.
Oh.
And even if I turned it upside down, I couldn't make it work. I love this book. I'm going to buy more of her books, but this is a companion book that I got with it that she recommended, okay? And it's for left-handed embroidery companion. There's also a right-handed one.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and there's stuff in here that's not in here, and then there's even like this little pocket guide, you know?
Well, I'm back to the journey. As soon as you get a little taste for it, you want to keep going, you want to dig deeper, you're going to find more books than even what you're showing right now, right?
Oh, I've got tons, okay? Then just for fun, this is Lilo's. Lilo got me all excited about Sue.
Now, Lilo is
works with us.
Yeah, she's one of our staff.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, look at the little beadings and I'm telling you, today I'm going to demo things that are super easy to stitch, straight stitch. But there's some really hard stuff in here, and it's fun, okay?
Yeah.
One thing I learned about Sue that was life-changing is that you do need different needles. For instance, if you're doing wrapped stitches, like a French knot, you need a milliner's needle because the needle doesn't go out where the eye is, it stays skinny. I mean, and in her book and in this book, they tell you what needle to use.
So you're changing needles more often than you might think?
Than you might think,
okay.
Yeah, and I actually bought these from Sue, my lovely case I made that's so bad. I mean, her stuff is beautiful, but I've got everything labeled, okay? The other thing...
Well, I got to ask you a question
Sure.
before you get to that. I don't need to know the why you're doing it, because we don't care why we quilt, why we cook, why we all that. We just do, we love to do it. But what has attracted you to this? What has been the magnet?
We talked about this before, and I realized what it's like, and some of you will remember this, and you probably don't or won't. Color forms. When I was a little girl, you could make pictures, and then you could move them around. It's paper dolls. It's playtime, you know? And my cat looks like this.
And I assume if it's handwork, you're sitting more comfortably and so forth, which comes to your...
Which is this? Okay, this is Lilo's, and you can say it.
Oh, it's a glue, I'm sorry, I can't say
Glowsend. Glowsend.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, there's 3 levels of light. They're available online, and you can put it over your neck, and then when you get this right in here, you can see.
Right.
You know, it's absolutely fabulous. And
it looks like it bends, so you get it adjusted
or
where you
like
wanted
reading
it.
at night and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyways, Lila let me borrow it on our dark day. Okay, I have to mention that when I get into circles and stuff, I want to use my Go Cutter. And they have different size circles, leaves, whatever, and it just makes cutting out so easy. So I've got to mention that. Then as far as wool goes,
look at that.
These are Sue's. They're absolutely beautiful. They're felted, which means they've been washed and agitated in hot water.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you get agitated to know about that?
No.
I'm sorry, that was bad.
No. And then
Stop laughing.
And then, yeah, they're just not rolling on the floor.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Then Sue has beautiful threads, okay? When I was so lucky it was online, because I would have had to take out a loan, okay? Because I want everything.
But tell me, these are wool?
These are wool.
Okay.
These are Sue's.
And I see smaller spools. Are those wool?
No, this is cotton, variegated.
So you could use that?
Oh, absolutely. These are silk. I don't know what this is, but it's shiny. I mean, if you've ever needle pointed, cross stitched, whatever, you can use that stuff, okay? Here are these little dot thimbles, all right?
And what do you use them for?
Sometimes it's a little hard to push through if you're also doing cotton.
So they stick to your fingers?
Yeah, I like it. Oh, I love my little disappearing ink thing. So let's get going on this, all right? First thing she talked about was the background, and that's what we created the first day, all right? And she suggested that you kind of keep like colors together. So I decided to go dark on this, all right? This is not hers. I believe that's hers.
But why is it 4 pieces? Why not just 1 piece of fabric?
More interesting.
Okay.
Okay, and then, guess what? Then you can go to your cottons and you can put things down and just kind of to add more texture. Now, when you start stitching and you bump into one of these cottons, you're going to understand the difference of stitching with wool over cotton.
Okay.
Let me show you how she taught to turn the corners. I'm not using fusible, I'm not using anything. I want to keep it as clean as possible because of all the layers of stitching, right? So this is basically 2 postcards glued together. My little hot iron, you just go up like this, pull off, whoops, there we go. All right, and then I would do this corner. I might hit it with best press, you know, after it's all done. And there you go, so forth. So the first day, you sewed on all these pieces randomly.
And did you sew by hand? I mean,
yeah. Yes.
So would it be like a hand applique, or was it done with the decorative stitch? I'm trying to get the visible.
The other thing I forgot to say is when I sewed these together, I pressed open. All right, and one of the things she said that surprised me to no end was she said, don't be shy with the heat. Press it. Get it open.
Because wool's going to take the heat.
It's going to take it. So, all right, so I've got these, and obviously I'm not going to stitch them on right now, all right? So I want to talk about the quality of wool, all right? Sue's stuff is beautiful. When it's all raw edge, all right, and it doesn't fray that much. I mean, hardly, it doesn't actually at all. It doesn't fray. You get into a looser wool, like this one, this is not hers, and it frays like crazy. Now, would I use this? Maybe.
Well, I'm looking at holes punched in it, so.
I know, but I didn't use them.
Oh, okay.
Because they fell apart.
They fell apart, all right.
Yes. This is a beautiful hand-dyed wool. So I guess my point is you're probably going to get a lot of these wools, well, either online or maybe you're at a quilt show or something. Really look at the wool and understand if it frays, you're just biting into something you might to be aware of.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So, I liked this wool because it had little pattern in it, and it could help me keep my lines straight. So that was a gas, you know. So, I was preparing for this show. It was killing me to not get into this and to work on my project. It was killing me. Okay. So I'm going to make sure I don't skip anything here. I've got the different textures here, okay? I'm gonna whip it down. This is 8 hours of work in my world.
Okay.
Now, the next thing you can do is, well, let's take a picture of what I wanted to do.
I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna say 8 hours of play because you're loving it so much. You're not sitting there working. You're really loving it. Okay? So, yeah, you guys, if you're gonna get into it, you're gonna get into it, and it doesn't matter the length of time.
Right, because it's gonna take a lifetime.
There
okay?
you go.
So, what I want you to do is, now you could get one of Sue's books and like folk tales and use her imagery in it and stuff like that, but in this case, again, I wanted to do my backyard, okay? But now I thought, what am I gonna do to demo? Well, Sparrow, my buddy, sits on top of my table in her basket, and that's her drinking pitcher.
Okay.
I love that picture. So that was my thing. That's what I'm gonna do.
All right.
So I drew it, and then I took it to my copy machine and made it larger, smaller, whatever, till it got to where the size I wanted it, all right? You can also go to copy-free,
Clip arts
or copy-free.
License-free designs that are on the web, and we also talked about this because there are also sites that you could go and pay a little license for and use their designs. Just our big thing is just don't go stealing designs.
Don't go stealing it. But this little guy came off the web, and that's how I got this little frog.
Okay.
All right, and you can see how naked he is there, but with my stitches and
you gave him bumps and a belly.
Yep. So let me get that out of the way. So this was huge. When you start developing your whatever you're going to do it in paper, because if I do it in paper, I am not worrying about the colors. I am worried about the design. Okay, and so there's my little picture, and I think I want flowers. You know, this is.
Well, it's playtime at that point. There's a bird.
Oh yeah, I want a bird down here too.
Yeah.
And now here's the other cool thing. Let's say I cut out the bird like this. I can flip it because wool is two-sided. And Sue suggests that you do it on freezer paper so that you can iron this down onto your wool and cut it out. And then you can turn it whichever way you want.
All right.
So
I love using freezer paper because that
that's your desert island thing, right?
It is.
Okay, so let's just do this. I could use rickrack for my flowers. I could use anything. So then I started cutting out. Once I get everything the way I want it, this is really hard to do upside down, I hate to tell you.
Oh yeah, your vase. Let's get your vase over there.
Get my vase on there. Bye-bye.
I don't remember which direction it was, but.
But see, that's the beauty of it.
Can we go
it
there?
can go, or it can go like this.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter, right? So I think I want it this way because I think I want Mr. Bird coming in that way.
All right.
But here's the polka dots, okay? And then when you get this, oh wait, these are the centers for my flowers. Well, anyways, you get the drift, right?
Well, no, I want you to keep getting the drift for me here.
Well, I'm getting all nervous Nelly because I'm
Don't
doing
be
it upside
nervous.
down.
That's okay. Make
Okay, there.
happiness.
Here we go.
There you go.
Maybe I take this down here. Then I do other flowers over here. Okay. And just look around. I mean, there's okay, look at how that's a half of one.
Okay.
For fun. So I get it where I want it. And then, again, I don't fuse it down. I use little itty bitty applique pins, and I just pin it. Pin it,
Okay.
pin it, pin it. Then I stitch it down on the edge, just itty bitty little stitches.
And so then when you stitch it, are you just using regular thread? Or?
You know, I use my 80 weight. It's got all the colors in the rainbow on it. It's a poly, and it buries very nicely.
But this is also going to go away. It's going to hide.
Yes.
Because you're going to cover it up with these gorgeous
Tons
stitches, right?
of stitches
Now the
on
stitches
top.
are complicated.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're also super easy, okay? So I have struggled on this. I'm learning. But like, let's just take these simple stitches here. This is called a back stitch, all right? You can do that. You can weave in and out. Well, let me show you this right here. Right in, all right, on the birdie. This here is a simple back stitch that I've woven, all right? I think this is called spider web. You start with that. All straight stitches, Ricky.
Okay.
And then you weave it around. And then this is a little grid that you can like tack down in each corner with little stitches. I mean, it's not hard. You can graduate up into master school, and that's where I'm going.
And I have to say that probably there's no real, you must use these stitches on a tree. You must these stitches to be, you just play. You just have fun with it. And that's what you're doing. You're having fun.
Watch out, the rabbit hole's deep.
Well, speaking of creative journeys, we are looking for the creative explorers, and our guest, Lisa Thorpe, is going to teach you how to take that journey into fabric when we come back.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm super excited about what we're going to learn today because we are mixing it up.
Oh, we are. And today's guest is really known for mixed media, but she's also a quilter, and she's put it all together in a wonderful package. Please welcome to the Quilt Show, Lisa Thorpe. Lisa,
Hey,
come on
Lisa,
out.
come on out.
Thanks
We're
for
so
having
glad
me.
that you're here.
I just look at your work around this room, and you really are mixing it up with what you do.
I just can't stop trying new things, so that's my thing.
Awesome. So you are an artist, you're an educator. Tell us a little bit of your background here, how we got here.
I've always loved to be a maker. That's been my comfort spot, and so when I was ready to go off to college, I went to UC Davis, and I wanted to do clothing and wearable art. And no surprise, I could not make a living doing that. So I got my teaching credential pretty quickly after that and taught art in the public schools, and was always dabbling, doing my thing, and stitch and making clothes, and household objects was always part of it.
This started when you were a little kid, right?
Little.
So tell us about that.
I just always loved being a maker. My Barbies, I'd make clothes for my Barbies. My grandma lived with us, and she taught me how to sew, and my mom had a good old Singer sewing
Look at
machine.
that.
Oh, that's my first little, I'm a queen, probably kindergarten. Oh, that's college. So anyway, so my grandma sewed, my mom sewed clothes for my sister and I was making clothes for my Barbies and the McCall's paper dolls, and
So it's in the blood.
it's that's
in the
what
blood.
I always wanted to be doing.
So let's start looking at your work, and it's super diverse. I don't see any sort of theme here going on other than it's just wonderful, okay? So let's talk about this first one, please.
Yeah, so this I actually did during the pandemic, and it's a exploration of surface design, particularly jelly print. And this is called Through the Peephole of the Pandemic. So it's like we're trapped inside, and then through the peephole are these bright, beautiful, natural, botanical prints. So that was where I was coming from with that. And that's just a little story I was telling of that moment.
And the storytelling is a really big part of your journey, whether it's in your mixed media work or it's in your quilt works. The next one, for example, let's talk about this because this has a statement. Tell us about these three.
Yeah, so I started a series. Now, this was when I was living in Northern California. I've now moved to Arkansas, but this was a series of endangered species of Sonoma County. And I was really wanting to tell the story of these animals, and using my surface design as the texture and the background and the dynamic part, but then have the animals be a part of the story. And the words are on there about who they are, what their habitat zone is, and all that. They're meant to be educational and appealing.
Right. Well, you spent a lot of time in California. You
Yes.
did say in Sonoma County. Tell us about that part,
Yeah.
that journey.
My husband and I and our son lived at a retreat center, an Episcopal retreat center in Sonoma County for 25 years.
Near what town?
Healdsburg.
Healdsburg, okay.
Healdsburg. Beautiful, out in the country. We lived there, worked there. I was the resident artist, and I got to create art programs for the guests, and lots of different groups came, and quilt groups are a big part of the Bishop's Ranch. So as they're coming, I'm peeking and seeing what they're doing, and then I bring my sewing machine over, and it's sort of this creative quilting bee happening. And I got a lot of tips about traditional quilting, and then kind of wove that into my little crazy quilt of art quilting.
Well, imagery is a big thing for you, and
Yeah.
using photographs. Let's look at the next couple of quilts. The next one is the
crane, right?
Yeah, the crane, that one I actually did since I came to Arkansas, and just soaking in the beauty there. And this is a photograph I took of a crane while paddleboarding. So this is a story quilt about this day of soaking in the beauty of this new place that I'd landed and didn't know anything about. So it's titled "Observe This Brilliant Moment," and that is written in stitch behind the crane.
Wow.
Again and again and again, like a mantra.
Okay.
So
Why did you leave the retreat center? Because that just sounds magical.
it was magical, but things change and people change, and the pandemic was pretty harsh on the retreat center.
Oh, yeah.
And because everything had to shut down, and it was my husband's job, and he was ready for a change, and he got an exciting, wonderful job at the cathedral in.
I think of it as
Little Rock.
we were talking about journeys a lot today,
Yeah.
and exploring, and at some point you're like, okay, it's time for a
time.
new chapter.
It's time, yeah. And actually, it's been an opportunity for me to open my eyes to new beauty, new things, and those are the stories that I like to tell.
Well, in preparing for this, before we go to the next quilt, you lived in California all over the place, and I instantly thought, Bay Area, LA, but no, you are in
Rural Northern California, all the way up the foothills to the Oregon border and back
What
down
was
the
that
middle.
like?
It just, kind of a forever outsider kind of person, to come into a small town where everybody knows each other, and I kind of pop in and, hello, I'm new. And so I've always been okay with just being me in these
Nice.
places because
Nice.
I was not them.
And you found your solace in making and in
I was
sewing.
going to say, and
yeah.
then you get into your art,
Yeah,
right?
and then I get into my art. And that's what I'm doing right now. I huge move from Northern California to Little Rock, Arkansas, and I'm just soaking it in. Who am I here? Who can I be
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love
in
that.
this new place?
Let's talk about the next quilt, because it also is a story.
Yeah, so this one is called In the Beginning, and it literally is a story. I wrote an origin story, an Earth origin story that's written on the peach color there, and it's a story of Raven as the maker and saver of the earth, and you'll see that there's an antique quilt at the bottom, and there's some antique crocheted lace at the top that I dyed with indigo
Wow.
dye, and I incorporated those in as sort of this idea that we as makers can save the world if we, bring our heart and soul and our creativity together. So that's the message of that
I
quilt.
think that's wonderful. Let's look at the next quilt.
This is a story quilt, a journey quilt, and it's really super simple story. It was a hike that my husband and I took from sea to sky. It's on the coast, Sonoma coast at Jenner, and it was an incredibly challenging hike that we probably shouldn't have done in July. And we barely made it up and barely made it back, but along the way, the seagulls and the ravens, you know, we encountered them, and there's a red stitched line that's sort of
I love that.
our journey line all the way up and all the way back.
I love that.
So you are a feminist, and in looking at the notes that Shelley provided, you like to do stories about women who their story is unsung.
Yeah, I want to give my mom some cred. My mom's the original feminist in my family, and my grandma too, actually. And so that's just how I was raised. And she was always pointing out that the women's stories weren't always being told.
Really?
Yeah, really. And that was actually her career, was working with Title IX, but that's a whole nother thing. But so in my art, I have that opportunity to highlight women, and so I do that in my mixed media art, and we've got some examples on the table here. And then I wanted to translate this paper art of featuring women's faces and the strength of women into how can I do this in fabric.
So tell us about the last quilt
So
here.
the last quilt is a story quilt, and this is Naama of the Ark. And my niece, who's Jewish and studying world religions, was telling me that, you know, Noah had a wife, and she's just barely mentioned in text anywhere. But that there's a children's story about Naama being the person who collected all the seeds, because Noah's got all the animals on the ark. What are they going to eat? So the woman is the collector of the seeds. So on her apron are little packets for seeds stitched into the hem of her apron, and there's plants in the pockets. And this is me imagining what her story
role
could
was.
be.
Yeah.
Because she got left out of the story. So
Love
I
it.
get to imagine her
Love
any way
it.
I want.
Yeah. Well, you did her well.
Well,
you did her well.
And I know that we could continue talking about this for a
Yeah,
lot
right.
more time, but we've got a lot more to do in
We
the
do.
show, and you want to teach people how to take photos, and they can take them right off their phone or their iPad and put them
Make it into
quilts,
art.
right?
That's right.
Love it.
We're
All
going
right.
to do it.
That's coming up right after the break. On the next quilt show, help us solve this debate: hand quilting or machine quilting?
Well, hand quilting, of course.
No, it's all machine quilting.
Well, whatever your preference, we've got you covered. That is hand quilting in a nutshell. She takes the first 2 rounds.
Alex is going to show you the basics of getting started with hand quilting.
And Ricky is showing you the basics of getting started with machine quilting and some feather folly.
These are tools, tips, and tricks that we have picked up over the years. They make a big difference.
Whether you want to move like a tortoise and enjoy the journey of what you're creating,
Or you want to move like the hare and win the race.
yeah, I think the tortoise won.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Except when you're quilting, hey, we're all winning.
Come quilt along with us at whatever speed you enjoy.
On the next Quilt Show.
Today is all about the journey and the narrative, and in the break we were continuing to talk a little bit about the quilt that you just shared with us, and I'd like to know a little bit more about your narrative on that quilt, because it's obvious that you have made Noah's wife to be a person of color. So I'd like to know about that.
Yeah, you know, when I started thinking about Naama, we don't know anything about her, and I thought her story got lost, and I get to claim her any way I want. I get to make her be this beautiful earth mother, and that's what I was going for. And so she can be anything, and I think by making her black, that makes people think, oh, you have to think about it. You have to look and think and look deeper and wonder, what is the story? So that's why I chose that. I wanted this beautiful earth woman who is this gatherer and connector.
It's beautiful, and I love your spirituality. I think so many of us do have these depths of spirituality. You have a religious background. You have served within the Episcopal Church.
Yep.
So has your husband.
Yep.
And that relates to even what we're doing today.
It
I
does.
love what you're saying about these. Now, these are called bird.
I call them bird box collages just because I end up putting them in a shadow box frame. And we hopefully have bird boxes in our backyards to attract the birds.
But it's not casual. So tell us about these.
It's not casual. I am a huge follower of my backyard birds, and I love them, and they're little symbols of this space between heaven and earth. You know, we're kind of earthbound, and the birds are flying. And so when I started creating these quilts, it's like a little ode, a little thanksgiving for my backyard birds that bless my life. So here's a few examples.
This one says dream.
It's a house finch.
A house finch. Oh.
And a burrowing owl. And I like to put paper objects and words. My son and I took sign language for several years, and I love to add sign language in
Do
there.
you remember that one?
It's wise.
Wise. Oh, not an accident.
Not an accident. And I'll often put, I carved a rubber stamp of this nest, and I think, again, a nest is like, with eggs, is a symbol of hope, you know, that anticipation. And then the music that we get from birds. And
That's wonderful. I love the music, of course. That's one of my wheelhouse.
this is a new bird from my new backyard in Little Rock, Arkansas. And again, the female cardinal, nobody pays attention to her. So here she is in her beautiful buff and red. And I found a little gift of a cardinal wing and feather in my backyard that
That's
I added
wonderful.
to that.
And then there's the sign language for
For
wings.
wings,
That's
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And then running the theme.
Yeah,
up
and
into
this
the
is
top.
just a little rubber stamp I carved. So when I need an image, I just carve a stamp or print some fabric, and here is a thrush.
It is wonderful. And you know, I was thinking back to Alex's segment where she's using wool, and that whole process could be done very similarly with
Yeah,
the wool, right?
Definitely,
So you
definitely.
could use a lot of different
Yeah, any
ways.
kind of fabrics can be used in this.
All right, so how do you get these really realistic birds onto fabric? Because this
Yeah.
is really fascinating
Yeah,
for me.
and you know, I'm a person who likes, I have an idea, I want to make it. So I'm connected with my computer, and this is my iPad. This is a photograph I took of a robin, and I put it into an app called Waterlogged. And so let me just show you. You select your photo, and you put it in, and there's just different watercolor effects that you can put on the photograph.
Wow.
And it softens the edges, and
Wow.
it can change the colors, and then you choose the one you like. For this image, I used the one called Illustration. And I
Okay.
like that because it's got a little more definition. It doesn't the colors don't run off, because I'm going to end up cutting this up and stitching it down. So this has a little black edge on it.
And I have to tell everybody, I have Waterlog on my phone, so because I like the app. So
I love
it's
it. I use it all the time.
Very simple app to use.
It's very simple.
Click the button and boom, there's the
And
there's
boom,
the
you've
design.
got your little watercolor. Plus, it softens up. I feel like it softens up the image. If I had just used the photo straight, I think it would be jarring with the fabric. I just want
agree.
I want to soften it up. So here I printed it on my home printer. I have an Epson color printer, and
what is the fabric?
This is a cotton. This is a packaged by Jacquard, is the company.
Okay.
And there's other companies, or you can put your own on freezer paper, so that's also a possibility. But I use the pre-made 8.5 by 11. I cut it to a half sheet, put this in my printer, ran it out, and then you peel the backing off.
Yeah, so it's stabilized on paper.
Stabilized on paper, or like freezer paper.
Okay.
And then I like my birds to have some dimensionality, and you can see that on the examples. So I fuse it onto some felt. This isn't fancy felt. This is just
And where do you
craft
get
felt.
it?
I get it at fabric store, like
Okay.
just a craft fabric store. It's
Okay.
not fancy felt. So I fused it down with Misty Fuse, and I tend to use Misty Fuse for these because it's not too thick. It's easier to
very
stitch
delicate.
through. So I've got Misty Fuse on my bird, onto my felt, and then I've got Misty Fuse on the back of the felt as well.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to be ready to fuse down to my
Later,
collage.
okay.
Yeah. And once I have those layers, then I fussy cut it out with scissors.
I'm going to say, when you're at this stage, you're using like a Teflon surface so
Oh,
that when
yeah,
you press
thank
it all
you.
down,
Yep.
that it's not getting stuck on everything,
yeah,
right?
you got it. Teflon surface or parchment paper.
Some kind of a nonstick.
Parchment paper works
Okay.
fine too if you don't have that. And I build my collage onto, this is also just a piece of craft felt that I've already put Misty Fuse on, so I can start fusing things down.
Okay.
And I'll take, in this case, my robin, and then I just go through my stash. As a mixed media artist, I'm always painting fabric and dyeing things and stamping things, and they all go into some bins. And because I'm a little OCD, I put them all together by color.
Quilters don't know anything about
Yeah,
that.
right. So I just pulled out a few things just to say, okay, I'm going to audition some fabrics that I might want to use. So I pulled out these kind of yellows and reds that I thought I might want to connect with my robin.
And how
But
did you feel about it?
Well, I felt like if I put her, I'm going to call
Okay.
her, on here, that she might get lost because it's almost too much the same.
Okay.
So once I looked at these, I did love the connection to the robin's chest, but I wanted a little more contrast.
But I also want to point out that you're using, this is like burlap.
This is burlap. This is some, I go to Goodwill and get old linens.
It could be linens or napkins.
and
and a
anything.
canvas.
This, yeah, anything, everything. Nothing is wasted and left
If this
behind.
were me, I would have just a play day playing with fabric, not even working on the collage, just going, well, like, what can I stamp?
well,
What can I do?
yeah, well,
and then
that-
you put it in your stash.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do.
Okay.
And so I've got that stash, but I decided I wanted a little more contrast, so I pulled out some greens and blues to play
right.
with. And actually, this is the dress of Naama. That's some
Oh,
batik that I had. So
wow.
that was a little scrap of that. And I have.
But the lettering, look at all the lettering
That's
here.
just handwritten with a
You did this?
metallic. Yeah.
Oh, this is your writing.
That's all. I'm pretty sure that's all different cloud formations that I just wrote out. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I don't need the viewer to
be able to read it.
To read it, it's
Yeah.
just it's there. It's part of the whole heaven and earth connection. This is a jelly print that I did of some Japanese maple leaves, and I thought that was a lovely kind of connecting to the earth, our bird and the earth.
I love that. And the stamps of the nest again.
The stamp of the nest. This is another stamp I created of a dogwood flower, and I like kind of that color connection. So I'm thinking I'm choosing that, but I can always play around with
are we
these
doing
things.
this on the felt?
Yeah,
let's make
we're
one.
gonna do
Let's
it
do
on
it
the
a little
felt,
bit.
Yeah. So we've got, this is the size, and the size may seem arbitrary. It's 11 by 14, but I choose this because this is a standard frame size.
Okay.
And then I know it's going to fit in a frame.
And I'll show you guys that in just a moment. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah,
It's coming up.
So I know it's going to fit. I don't have to do any other finishing for it. So,
All right.
so once I decide on where I'm going with the fabrics, then I start playing with how I might lay it out. And
Do you overlap?
I overlap. I can just put it right up to the edge. It doesn't really matter. I'm gonna fuse it and I'm gonna stitch it.
Okay.
So both things are gonna happen. So this fabric is very stiff because I put matte medium on it because I didn't want it to fray. That was for a different project.
Yeah, it is very, very stiff.
But you know, I have a old Bernina sewing machine, and she gets through everything.
That's great to hear.
So just kind of playing. Now I'm kind of making my quadrants. I'm having some energy going in both vertically, and then these blocks kind of keep it from being too stripy.
Okay, sure.
You know?
Yep.
So then I start thinking about how am I going to get my bird in here. And so here, I'm going to move us on.
All right.
I've already got my
And
background down.
I'm just going to point out that you have done a zigzag stitch, which adds a little element.
It adds a little texture, plus it keeps everything down really nicely. So I've got my background down, and now I can start playing. I decided to pull out some of this kind of russet color because I do want to connect to my robin in some way. I don't want to leave her just hanging as the only thing with this color. So this color comes back as a suggestion of a branch. And I've already put fuse on the back of these before I cut it, just to make it easier to get down. And I'm going to play with that. And I play with the layering. I like sort of the effect of what's in the front and what's in the back.
Right, and then you've got these that you can add.
I got these that can go in, and I can play, do I want that to go over the top? Do I want this to be over that? So that's all part of the auditioning and playing. I've got some of this in here. Do I want that to be over or under?
Do you ever stop and take a little snapshot with your phone?
I was just going to say that. I absolutely do that. So I take a snapshot if I've got one layout that I like, and then I might keep playing and go, oh,
I don't like it now. Let me go back to what I did like.
What I do, yeah. So then once I kind of have a layout, I'll think about some of these theme things. That's another sign language thing.
It says song.
That says song. Here's heaven. I have a whole bunch of these from an old sign language book.
And the music. I love the music notes.
And then I like to put music in there because I think that's part of what we love about birds is the music that they give to us. So I'll often put music in these. And then, yeah, once I come to a place like this, I start stitching from the back forward.
There's one element that I don't want to fail to mention, and that is your mindset and your spirituality while you're doing this. You were talking to me about that in the break, so tell me about that.
Yeah, when I'm making this is an homage, an ode. It's a little prayer to this beautiful bird that has blessed my life. So I want to make a beautiful piece of art, but I also want to give thanks for this bird, and that's really where I'm coming from with these.
I think it's fabulous, and then you've got it all done up, and I just really want to show this. It's so beautiful when it's finished.
Yeah.
And anybody could do this, and while your spirit is going to the birds, I mean that in a good way, right? Yeah. But somebody else might be connected with something else, or a hummingbird, or
a butterfly,
a caterpillar,
or
flowers.
Their cat.
Yes, or their cat. So there's a lot of options. This looks so much fun, and I think it's very doable. I also see this as being very doable with youngsters.
Yeah.
So you could get some kids involved in doing this, right?
I think so, yeah.
Well, when we come back, you are not done because we have got some more wonderful inspiration on this journey from Lisa Thorpe when we get back.
I'm back with Lisa, and Lisa, that last segment just was so intriguing to me, but yay, you're taking it farther, right?
Yeah. You know, when I was talking to Ricky, I was talking about the bird boxes being odes and homages to birds in this beautiful moment, and I really wanted to do more with that, so I started creating this is my book of delightment.
Okay. Oh, I like that.
And so I started making these small quilts that are sort of a meditative moment. It pushed me to be more aware of the beautiful things in my life. It's been kind of a rough roller coaster couple years
kind of
here.
Chaos
for a lot of us in lots of ways. So I wanted to give myself some structure. So that's what this is. So I created a workbook to observe this moment of delight more deeply. So this is just an example of
But I want to go down
Yes,
this though too, because
yes.
there
Thank
was
you.
a poo here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my workbook pages are talking about the elements of design. So those are the little pieces that come together: color, value, line, form, texture, space. And that's then what I am showing on these pages.
Okay.
So this moment that stopped me in my tracks was this ginkgo tree in a parking lot. I pulled over, took a photo with my phone, collected some leaves, and then in my workshop made a color map, thought about what patterns I was seeing, and then carved a rubber stamp out of that. Then I go back to my principles of design. How do I create a piece of art out of these elements? So balance, rhythm, pattern, etc. And I added to the list intention, intent.
I love that. Beyond measure.
Because I want to know why am I making this.
Right.
So for this little quilt, I'm making this because I'm finding delightment in this beautiful yellow ginkgo leaf. This is a walk in a bay woods where I found a black feather. Here are the elements that I found that I put in my workbook. I applied those to make this art quilt.
And you know what's so beautiful is all of these could be framed just like you did in
That's
Ricky's
right.
segment.
Yeah, exactly. Finished any way you want, really. This is my first art quilt that I made after my move to Arkansas. And I was feeling a little blue and down, and I went on this beautiful paddleboarding with my husband on a beautiful river, and that sort of brought me to my new place, to find the beauty in this new place. So here's my design page. Here's the quilt that I created from that day.
Is this watercolor paper?
Yeah, this is a mixed media sketchbook
Okay.
that you can get at any art supply
Because I
store.
see all these things going on
Yeah.
there, and it's holding its own.
Yeah, it's holding its own. So the intent of this is to tell the story of the day on that one. This one is a photo of a dogwood flower, and I really wanted to break down this simple flower into its design elements to break it down and see how far I could go with this simple design. And what I did was I carved a rubber stamp that's just
perfect.
1/4
Perfect.
of the dogwood flower, printed that on hand-painted fabric, and then did this. The intent of this was to more play with design and color. So that's where intent comes in again. And more stories, walks. This is a beautiful day on a lake with lily pads.
Beautiful.
And
You've kind of knocked me out here. Truly, truly.
this one's about sound. So this is a cicada. That's new to me in Arkansas.
Okay.
I didn't have those in California.
Right.
So sound, a soundscape. And then the one we're going to do together today.
Okay, so just to be clear, the
Yes.
chicken and the egg,
Yes.
this comes first.
This comes first.
And then that.
Then that. Yeah, this comes, here's my inspiration. This cicada was blowing my mind. These were the colors on this walk. Translate that into what does sound look like? That's what this quilt is.
I want to take a class with you, okay?
Okay, let's do it. Okay, so today I took a photo of a koi pond. Who doesn't love these colors just roiling around under the surface, right? So I took a photo of the koi, and that's my inspiration. That's where I'm jumping off from. And in my studio, I have all the things I need to just get going making elements. So I carved a rubber stamp of a koi. This is a soft rubber, easy to carve. And I did that in orange and white. And here's a little guy, because I want to play with scale.
What is this stuff?
It's called Easy Cut. Different companies make it. It's just it's like a white rubber eraser.
Okay, and then do you carve it like with a
with a carving tool like you would a wood block.
Gotcha.
Same thing but easy.
Okay.
Same but easier.
But now this next thing you're going to show.
Now this next thing, I wanted to create the elements that is above the koi pond. So there's this the fish underneath and what's growing above. So
Wait, do we want to take a look at this?
yeah, this is where it's going.
Okay.
Okay. So the fish
Right.
elements are there. That's from the stamp. And now I'm going to show you doing a jelly print, and it's called a jelly print because this is a gelatin-based printing pad.
Okay. And when you get this where? This has been loved.
This has been very loved. This is from a fine art supply store, or you can make your own with gelatin and glycerin.
Not a lot of water.
Not a lot of water.
Okay, all
Don't
right.
eat it.
So teach me here. This
Okay,
is new.
Right. So this is, I use acrylic, open acrylic paints. And open means the drying time is open. It's slower than other acrylic paint because I'm going to roll this out real thin. And if I didn't use the open, it would dry too fast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I love golden open acrylics because they mix beautifully.
And you just art supply store.
Art supply store.
Okay, that's interesting. I did not know that about acrylics.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm gonna just roll this on real thin, and I'm using this, I've lightened it up with some white, the blue. I want kind of the sky, the idea of sky coming through. And let's see, I'm gonna set this here so we don't get your cutting.
And I'm sitting there going, okay, now where's that going to
she
go?
doing? What's she doing?
Exactly.
And I'm gonna put, this is a dried leaf. You can use a fresh leaf, but I'm just gonna set that there. That's making a mask. It's
Okay.
blocking the paint. And then I'm gonna put this is just some hand painted fabric.
And what did you use for that?
I used watered down acrylic paint.
Okay.
Just because that's what I got around.
But not this open stuff. Or it doesn't
it can
matter.
Be.
Okay,
it doesn't
gotcha.
matter. I'm just giving it a good rub. And hopefully the big reveal.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So
I'll take two.
That's the element that's being used at the top of this piece.
I love that. And there's nothing to it.
There's nothing to it. You lift that off, and
that poor little guy got stranded.
Little guy got stuck. But so that's the easy peasy way to create an element for an art quilt. That's how that's going to get used in here. Is I've got these three that I already did.
Okay, so this is how you did the top here. Okay, so how do you get all this together?
Okay, so again, like I did with the birds, I have felt with Misty Fuse already applied, so you can feel that on there.
It's not there, practically.
It's not there, but it's got a little bit of tackiness.
Yeah.
Okay, so once I have my elements decided, I can put them down. I have my background fabric. This is, again, is just painted with acrylic paint. Just playing with color. That would go here. Now this I felt like was sort of needed something, right?
Okay.
Because we've got green, blue, and even if we start throwing these guys on.
And those are just little stamped
They're
that you went and
stamps that
painted?
I fussy cutted.
Okay.
Fussy cut. And there's Misty Fuse on the back.
Okay.
Okay, all ready to go. But I wanted to kind of think about that reflection of the space in between the water and, the sky, right? So I used another piece of just painted fabric that I folded in half and cut.
So it's all wavy.
So it's-
Let's bring this up so people can
Yeah.
see right here. Yeah. I mean, this is just, the design is just beyond bueno, you know? Beyond. Okay.
So those are, so then the elements, then you have your elements and you get to just play again with the layout like I did with Ricky.
And everything has Misty Fuse on the back.
Everything's ready to fuse, exactly. And even though I fuse it, I do then come back and do free motion stitch because I want it to really stay down, and I also feel like the stitch adds more texture.
Well, it does. And what about, this is hand done, right?
Yeah,
Is that tough to go through all that?
it's a little tough. That's why I just do a simple running stitch. But I like the extra motion that a little embroidery thread can give to the top. But I used blue thread down here in the watery area. I used the orange thread up here to connect to the koi in the color story.
So when I say that's tough to do, you go, girl, you got to toughen up.
That's right. Well, I hadn't seen those finger thimbles.
Oh, you're going to love them.
Yeah, so I think I need that because this is a lot of, it's the felt and the misty fuse and whatever, but I still love to do a running stitch.
Now, let's just talk about this right here.
Yeah, okay, this is my personal chop. So it has my initials LT there, and I use this as my signature. So I'll stamp this on almost all my work.
Okay.
And even the larger quilts behind.
Okay.
Have my chop on there.
Now, I have a question for you. You are all over the map with stuff, okay?
Yeah.
How do you keep it organized, or is it just a boom in your room?
It's a boom in my room when I'm making, but I can't feel creative unless everything's picked up and put away. So when I'm done making, I put everything away, and my best friend is my label maker.
I just learned about P-Touch.
Yeah.
I love it. Hey, Ricky, you got to come get your nose on here. This is so exciting to me. And again, these are perfect to be framed, right?
Yeah, framed.
Yeah.
Framed.
And what do you think of that book?
Well, this is such an inspiration right here.
I
mean,
know.
and I was thinking about that as a creative process in and of itself to get
Absolutely.
you into the kind of the flow and let your mind think about where you're going.
Exactly.
And I want to say, too, that, you know, Lisa does teach. Of course, the pandemic has changed that. So you are teaching online.
I teach online. I teach through different platforms. People hire me to do something for their group or their family or whoever.
And Zoomy Zoom.
Zoomy Zoom.
Yeah. But
And your website is?
My website is lisathorpe.com.
I want to take you really badly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want
Everybody
you
needs to zoom over and get this newsletter, get on your blog, just start
Yeah.
following it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now don't go anywhere because we have an after set that you are gonna like this. It was like, ooh.
This has been great. And Alex, I loved your segment at the top.
Thank you.
Because you're talking about all the wool stuff, but it also so much relates to the process that you're using. And you can see that there's so many different ways to let that spiritual journey of yours come out and turn it all into fabric, whether you're using photos, whether you're cutting wool, whether you're doing stamping. It just all can be play. And that's what it should be, ultimately, as a representative of what's inside.
I love the word intention. That's my takeaway here.
Yeah,
intention.
great.
It's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alex, thank you. Thank you for watching today. And everyone, as always, remember, it's a new day
Every day.
Remember, we're not quite done. There's still the after set right after the credits. Lisa, I love this. This is called Haiku for Quilters, or it's a haiku quilt. But first of all, what's haiku?
Haiku is a short little poem, so, you know, I love my story quilts, and these are just itty-bitty stories, just a haiku.
Okay. So tell us about them. I'm extremely intrigued.
So I created these kits at the beginning of the pandemic when a lot of my classes got canceled, and I wanted a way to connect with people out there and people to have an opportunity to connect with their creativity. So I've made about 9 kits, and they kind of sell out as I create them. I come up with an idea, I stamp all the fabric, hand stamp the fabrics, and sometimes dye the threads, put the kits together, put them on my website, and then create instructions. So everything's there. So
Look
these
at the little feet.
stamped, yeah, those are hand stamped.
Well, tell me about this. I want to know about it.
Oh, I know
What's
you do, the
what's-
raven.
Yeah, but what's the haiku? What's the story?
Well, this is called Journey, this quilt. So I provide all the elements for people to tell their own journey. So there's a labyrinth and the flight of the bird, and there's words here that people can choose to highlight in their quilts. A compass, a key. So
And they
that
can put them together in
they
these
put them
different
together
ways.
any way they
Right,
want. The
right.
elements are there, and the elements all go together. I give examples of how they might go together, but there's not a right answer or a wrong answer. You're creating your own poem.
Okay, and what's that one?
This one's called Breathe, which somewhere after the pandemic kept going, we all needed to do that, take a nice
no
deep breath.
kidding.
So there's all these images of standing pose, and I've got some quotes on there.
I love it. Be the peace you want to see in the world by Martin Luther King. Now look
Well,
at this.
and I have to say, I'm a labyrinth guy, so I'd love the little
Oh,
finger,
yeah.
a little
And
finger labyrinth.
There's
you
the
know.
labyrinth again. I'm big on labyrinth as,
Yeah.
as sort of a journey and a life
So
story.
how much do these little kits run? Not to hold you to the fire, but what do they run?
They're $45
Oh,
on my
great.
website.
Great.
Everything's in there: thread, needle, felt backing, all the little pieces.
You know
So-
what, that is just playtime. You've just handed people playtime.
Which is what
playtime.
you did at the very
I
top
know.
of the show.
This is like
Yeah.
perfect.
And
Perfect.
families got them, sisters did them online together, you know, grandparents and grandchildren, and it's been a nice thing.
So, okay, look, if you sell out like that, how do I know when you have a new batch available?
You gotta follow me on my website.
Which
So,
is, again?
LisaThorpe.com.
Okay.
So I've got a shop, a newsletter, and a blog,
Perfect.
and a lot of info.
Well, today was fabulous.
Oh, thank you. It was great to be here.
I want to see you at Craft Napa.
Yes, me too.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Thank you.